Hello there, welcome back to Gardening with Citrine. Thank you so much for being with me. Today I'd like to show you how to propagate a pothos plant. This is one of my favorite plants that I own, and I've had it with me for approximately 20 plus years. This plant came from my mom, and I've been taking care of it ever since. Pothos grows kind of like a forest. It's a mini forest in here. And it can be overcrowded, but this plant, as you see, is doing very well. And it's only getting better and better as it matures. Over time, you can separate the root system by going in and cutting the plant in half. But the easiest way is to do what I'm going to show you next. At first, I was just simply plopping the old plant into a new pot and calling it a day. But as I got more and more familiar with it, there is a special technique, and it's also kind of fun. It's like arts and crafts that you can do with this plant. And this is its propagation style. I'm sure there's multiple other ways, but this is the way that I've learned and I've stuck to for about 10 years of looking after the plant. In the most recent years, I've gotten more daring with how to do these types of techniques. And so I want to share with you and help you be comfortable with this technique as it's helped me so very much. This is an older plant and it needs some TLC, it needs some help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to properly cut segments of the plant, of the vine, off of itself, and we will get them ready and prepared to plant into soil and become a new plant itself. Firstly, you want to begin with removing all dead leaves, either by gently pulling and twisting them off, or by simply cutting them. Once you've successfully cleaned up your plant, what you want to do next is you want to examine it. Cookie baby. What's up? You also want to tidy up the existing soil by removing that topsoil, and we're going to put new, fresh soil on top, and that also acts as an easy way to fertilize your plants. Here is an easy technique to help your plants look a little bit more fuller. And so this is simply just a cutting from the very tip of a vine, and that's the easiest part of this plant when propagating to begin to grow again. This will easily sprout new leaves and become its own plant, even if you planted it in just a tiny little container and you wanted to gift that away. The tips of the plant would be the most ideal part of the plant to do that with, and it's so easy. Okay, here I'm going to be showing you an up close and detailed view of what we're working with. So on the stem or on the vine of the plant, you can see nodes. And nodes are those brown protruding parts that you see that are generally in between or on a piece of the vine that has a leaf attached. And so these are anchor points as well. They will grab on to certain types of material, not all, and so that's good. Painted surfaces, though, it has adhered to that very well, and it leaves markings that you're going to have to clean off and even sand away, depending how long that plant has anchored itself to that place. It might not come off. If you provide support like old branches and that kind of thing, they will easily wrap themselves around, and that will be their anchor point, that will be their home to stay, because this is a vine after all. It's going to climb. It climbs everywhere, and it grows very fast. So that's a good part of the plant to know. But also, this is a good indicator for where you should be cutting the plant. These are your markers for where to cut. In between each leaf, you will see some nodes. And so even then, cut around what you can, but always try to cut on an angle when doing so. And these segments, as you'll see later, they will root from those existing nodes that you have left on the plant. So the more that you can leave, or the more that you can give, the better. So here once again, I'm showing you a cutting, and this is from the tip of the plant. This, like I said, is the easiest part of the plant to propagate from. This plant here is growing very tight together, I believe because it was under some stress. And so what I'm going to do is carefully pick a nice place in between the leaves here and make a cut to divide them, because I do not want to replant them together again like this. I've prepared 2 pots in advance, and the easiest way to go about this is by wetting the soil first, and also using a dowel or a kebab skewer or something of that sort to help you to make it easier to plant these leaves, little baby plants. What I like to do is I like to follow a circle around the plant, and you do kind of a spiral all the way into the middle of the circle. When preparing for your propagation, when you're preparing your cuts, it's easiest to start with just a large segment of the vine, and from there you'll be making your cuts easily as you sit comfortably or wherever your station is. It's also a very good thing for your plants to have these vines removed, as you can give more of the energy and direct more of the nutrients to the top of the plant rather than to the bottom. So here I'm showing you the other technique in which you're going to be cutting each and every leaf off of the stem. When you have leaves that are yellow or are dying, you are obviously not going to be using those, and so just simply discard that. You want to pick from the healthiest part of your plant to get the best outcome. And so here you see those nodes where I've cut, and I've left at least 2 or 3 of them on each side. You're going to want to go down the vine and make it easy on yourself and create these cuts all the way. You're going to be picking through your best leaves as you go, your best cuts. But the easiest way is to simply prepare them before you begin. I really like using the word simply. This is a very easy process. I can't stress it enough. So using your dowel, using your skewer, or even using your fingers, but I prefer this as it gives you a more exact, precise location. You want to place this just underneath the soil. Most important part here is not to overdo it with the amount of soil and also the amount of pressure that you're putting on the plant here. You want it to be able to grow easily from the soil, and so just like a new plant with seeding, you want it to be loosely packed soil that makes it very easy for new growth to poke out of, to pop out of when it's ready. Once you get going along, the placement becomes a lot easier in some ways as you get used to it, but then placement can also become a little bit more annoying as you're fighting with other plants. And just like that, a little bit of soil, a little bit of pressure to push it down. And that moist soil that we're starting with really makes this 10 times easier because it keeps your plants in place as you're going along. It keeps them stuck in place. Otherwise, they pop up out of that soil constantly and it can be pretty annoying. And so here I am preparing all of those cuts, like I said earlier, always starting with the outside, as these leaves can get pretty big and they will be hanging over the edges. That is the design of this plant. A vine is to have it droop over the edges, cascading over, and it looks really beautiful when it's nice and full. Each of these will have its own vine system coming up off of it. And so as you can imagine, it's going to be really beautiful once it's a mature plant. It takes a little while for it to get going, but with the right amount of light and the right fertilizer that you're giving it, you do not have to repot this. Do not repot it. If anything, add new soil to the top if it's looking barren after watering it for so long. And like I said, give it a nice dose of fertilizer on a good schedule. Once you see new growth coming up off of these new shoots or parts of the plant that you've put in, once you start seeing new growth coming up and it's creating its own new vine, that's a really good indication that you can think and consider repotting it. But I would wait until the plant has a few inches of that new growth before you would even consider, because you do not want to disturb its root system during this process. It is a new plant establishing a whole new root system for itself. A small pot this size, but also as wide, is ideal. And it's deep enough to promote a really good start in that root system. And so there you have it. Here is the final product of the propagation technique of cutting each individual segment of leaf and vine off. And this is so much fun to do. It's like an arts and craft project. You don't want to overwater this, but you want to keep it nice and moist as it's beginning to grow. The Pothos vine, otherwise known as devil's ivy, it is a tropical plant, and so it's similar to a succulent in which it doesn't need a lot of water. That's what makes this plant so good as a house plant, because you don't have to worry about it 24/7 or even every day. You can let it go for weeks without any water, but the only thing is you need to have a kind of humid environment inside. You can't have a dry environment that it lives in, or else you will have to depend on watering it directly to the root system, like a normal watering. Otherwise, if you spray the leaves with a mister or a spray bottle, that's what can get this plant by. That's what can really help this plant survive. It stores its water in its leaves and in its vine itself. And so therefore, it doesn't need a lot of moisture going on in its soil or its medium in the pot. When planting, You want to make sure that the new growth has an easy way to protrude out of the soil or an easy way to find sunlight. If you place that too far under the soil, it could die. It's helpful to have so many of these on the go in one pot because your chances are much greater. Also, these plants like to be bunched up together. They like to not be overcrowded, but crowded just enough within their pot. It helps to keep moisture within the soil and not get dried out as fast. The root system on a pothos plant is huge. The roots are very thick because they're holding a lot of water with them, just like we've seen in the aloe plants. It's very similar, but they mostly are storing that water within the vine itself and the leaves. And you can tell a healthy plant by just how big the leaves become and how thick that vine becomes too. Here I'm finishing up the first plant that we started. And this is the tops of the plant. These ones have a head start on becoming a vine because, as I said earlier, they're already growing in such a way. But these segments that we are cutting are kind of being forced to grow in another way, sort of like survival to keep itself alive. I think that's very interesting that you can manipulate plants this way. And I do think about how they must feel. But when I see them growing up and I see it going, it's really special to be able to have gone in and done such a intricate procedure, just like surgery to a person, and see the outcome that is for the better. Please check out my Instagram to keep in touch and see the updated progress on all my plants. And there you can stay in touch and ask me questions further with videos. And hopefully I can help you along in your next adventure with propagation. Propagation is such an important part of every plant. And once you understand it, you can see just how far you can go with every single plant that you work with, giving it more life, keeping that life going so that you can enjoy the plant and it can enjoy you for many more years to come. Like I said, this plant here is going on probably 30 years at this rate because it was around when I was a baby. And here I am getting the chance to take care of it 30 years later. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I love gardening. I love everything to do with it. And I hope that you could see just how fun it can be and just how easy it can be too to take care of a plant. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more of these types of videos, and I'll be in touch. Bye.